all the ways to promote your product, the most effective is word of mouth.
92% of us rely on the recommendations of our friends.
Word of mouth is the most powerful form of marketing.
Nothing influences people more than a recommendation from a trusted friend. Word of mouth.
This is Word of Mouth. I'm calling for your good read recommendations. 0467 922 891 is that text line number. Ingrid from Millswood says Dr. Harry has a book. It's about his English Staffy dog and it's great. Thank you, Ingrid, for letting me know about that. So let me know what you're reading and if it's any good at the moment. Stacey Howard is the owner of Mockingbird Lounge, a second-hand bookstore and cafe. She's got some books to recommend by some award-winning authors. You might have read these books and you might be keen to weigh in with your thoughts, but you might have something completely different to recommend too. Stacey, good afternoon.
Hello, how you going?
Yeah, very well, thank you. I think you're living my dream. You've got a cafe and a second-hand bookstore. Yeah, how's business? Is it going well?
Good, yeah. I think books and coffee and cake, it's a winning combo. So.
Oh, it most definitely is. Let's start with Horse, one of the books that you're recommending this afternoon by Pulitzer Prize-winning author Geraldine Brooks. So It's about the racehorse Lexington. So is it non-fiction? Is it fiction? Is it a mix of both?
It's fiction, but like all of Geraldine Brooks' work, it's very well researched and based on snippets of truth. So she's taken a few details and then turns it into an amazing story. So, I mean, I will read anything that she writes. So I don't even look at what it's about until I'm started reading it. And Horse, I mean, it's so many topics in this book that she covers. I have no knowledge of and no real interest in, but yet she manages to weave like such an interesting story with wonderful characters that she makes it so interesting and you want to learn more about it. So, yes, it's about the horse during, like, pre-American Civil War times in the Deep South. So there's slaves and there's plantation owners and you've got all that history there. And then there's also modern day to do with research about racehorses and bone structure, and there's all this detail about museums and how they work and how they restore things. And then there's also the art element. So there's a painting of this horse that gets discovered. So you've got the whole history of this painting and painting techniques and restoration techniques. And you've got the modern day characters who are looking into this and discovering this. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
You sort of go backwards and forwards between the timelines. But it's also so interesting.
It's a real talent, isn't it, of Geraldine Brooks to be able to, as you say, so, you know, you pick something. It's almost like she could say fruit bowl, you'd say to her one day, and then all of a sudden, yes, it would be centred somehow around a fruit bowl, and yet there would be all this tapestry of storylines that would all weave in. I know, it's incredible, isn't it?
I haven't actually, and I would still read it.
You would.
About a fruit bowl.
Maybe we should let her know. Geraldine Brooks, fruit bowl, your next one. So Lexington, was it a real racehorse?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, okay. So she's taken this real racehorse and then put in this multi-layered story behind it.
Yeah, and I think also the painting element, there was the painting found as well, and the bones of this racehorse was found, in a museum as well. So that's all true. So, yeah, she's just woven the story around that.
Oh, so good, isn't it? Well, we're getting some suggestions, and I know you've got other books to talk about, Stacey Howard. I'll just throw some of these at you because you're more likely to have read these than what I have. I just finished Painted House by John Grisham. I'm in two minds about this book, says a texter. Kate says, I just finished Where the Crawdads Sing. So disappointing. One-dimensional characters and boring. You disagree with Kate, Stacey?
Yeah, I recommended that one last time I was on the radio. I haven't seen the movie yet, but the book was, I can see some people, it was a little bit fantastical, a little bit fairy tale, but I went with it. I liked it.
Okay, all right. One of the other books that Stacey Howard is going to tell us about this afternoon is Anxious People, which is by Fredrik Backman. So it's another one that I haven't read myself, but is this, would you say, grab the tissues because it's going to make you cry and it's also going to make you cry laughing?
Yeah, it is. So I love his other work. I read Beartown, Man Called Uva, I think it's pronounced. So he's a Swedish author. And yeah, this is the same kind of, it's got the quirky characters and the story that can be a little bit dark, but definitely funny as well. So this one's it's an interesting setting in that it's a hostage situation setting after a botched bank robbery, and it brings together all these strangers brought together as hostages. And so you've got all of those characters and you've got all of their own stories and histories and struggles and everything, and then you've got them thrown into this crazy situation, and so you've got the dynamics going on, and you've just got this really interesting story. You don't know where it's going, definitely unexpected. And yeah, the book's woven in with some police interviews as well. So you've got the story, but then you've got that broken up with police interviews from after. So you've got, it's got everything. It's got the quirky characters.
How do they do it? You know, we're talking again about this weaving these different elements of a story together and keeping the reader on the hook, aren't we? This is what makes a really good book, Stacey. And I'm just, have you ever written a book, Stacey Howard?
No.
I wonder how, people manage to go about it, laying out all the bits and pieces. I'm envisaging this big table with all these ideas in it, and then they just gradually, it must be quite a process, whatever they're being paid.
Yeah, like those detective maps with all the strings.
Yeah, that's right.
I can imagine, yeah.
This is Word of Mouth. Stacey Howard is my guest. She's the owner of Mockingbird Lounge, which is a second-hand bookstore and cafe. We would also like to hear from you. What's a book that you couldn't put down and why? 1300 222 891. I love a happy ending. Oh, I don't know if we can do that. But Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. Are we going to be satisfied with how it all ends up, Stacey?
Yes, let's say yes.
Is it a relatively new book?
It's his newest, I'm pretty sure. So Let me just see. I have it here in my hand. So 2020.
Yeah, okay.
Was when it was first published in English, yeah.
There's one to get your hands on. Anxious People. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. So, Fredrik Backman, you said, what nationality is he, Stacey?
Swedish.
So, and that translates, because sometimes humour is very much a cultural thing.
Yeah, so you can. I feel like you can tell that it's a different sort of humour. Like, it is sort of dark and quirky, but I definitely like it, so I'll read anything that he writes also.
Okay. Another text here saying the best book I've read is The Expected One by Kathleen McGowan. I was gifted the book by a friend who said it changed her life and I loved every page. Stacey, are you familiar with that one, The Expected One?
I've seen it. I haven't read it, but maybe I will.
Maybe you will. Maybe you should. We'll talk about your third book in a moment, but Leah has called in from Prospect on 1300 222 891. If you have a book suggestion, get on the phone also. Leah, good afternoon to you.
Hi, how you going?
Very well, thank you. What's the book suggestion you have for us?
I'm currently reading, so I haven't finished yet, but Holy Woman by Louise Omer. So she's a local South Australian woman who she was a Pentecostal preacher and at a very young age in South Australia, and then her marriage kind of broke down and her belief systems kind of started shattering around her, and she wanted to reconcile her feminist beliefs with her religion, and so she started on this journey, and she was already a writer and an author before this, but started on this journey kind of through Ireland and Mexico and Turkey to kind of in this quest of trying to reconcile this and seeing where women had been kind of crushed by the church. And her beliefs kind of crumble as she kind of goes through and explores what's happened to women in various faiths, but in particularly Christianity. She's still kind of, it's just a really interesting travel story, but also kind of philosophical story and history, and it's obviously it's real. So, it's very, very interesting, and I think it's very worthwhile.
Leah, does it make you angry in any way when you're reading it? Do you know what I mean by that? Like when you're hearing about the trials, she's revealing to everybody the trials that people have been through, that women have been through in religious settings. So did you get under your skin in a way?
Oh, yeah, but this is definitely something that I've been, a topic that I've been exploring myself through many years and through, different lenses and as well. And I just think it kind of hits the nail on the head, and just the way that she writes is so beautiful. It's things that perhaps I've had thoughts about but never been able to put into words or express in the way that she does, and I think it's just a really interesting insight and really well articulated.
By a South Australian author, by Louise Omer. So that book that Leah from Prospect is recommending is called Holy Woman. You're on ABC Radio Adelaide, South Australia and Broken Hill. We'll go back to Stacey Howard in a moment to hear about her last book, and it's a Tim Winton book that she is recommending. But Jill has called in from Kensington on 1300 222 891. Hello, Jill.
Hi. I'd just like to recommend Hannah Kent's Devotion.
Right,
That's her
okay.
latest novel.
Her latest novel?
Is brilliant.
And
yes,
what's it about, Jill?
It's about, it's set in South Australia. It's in the early times when people were coming to South Australia, so the first settlers. And it's about the story of two girls who are very close. And I won't give too much away because one of them, something happens to her, and then the other one lives her life around that story. And it's a remarkable story, but everything by Hannah Kent is remarkable.
Is it a non-fiction, Jill?
Yeah. Look, I think it's built. It's obviously built on the early settlers. So there'd be, Hannah Kent does a lot of research. So it would definitely be built on people from the early settlers in South Australia. And then, there's always fiction, I imagine, associated with every book. But just like I was listening to you talk about, what's the name of the girl that's just written Horse, Geraldine Brooks.
Yes.
Her books are absolutely amazing as well.
Jill, thank you for that suggestion. So Jill is recommending Devotion by Hannah Kent, another Adelaide author. Few texts coming through. Dale from Gawler says a good book is Horsefish and a hard one, Treasures by Terry Hurl. They're great stories about gemstone hunting and fishing trips in the Northern Territory. Another local author and published. Karen says anything by Lisa Jewell. They are all page turners. And Shuggy Bain by Douglas Stewart, says Ness on the text line. I think it won the Booker Prize in 2021, says Ness. It's set in Scotland and through the eyes of a young boy. It is terrific. Well, thank you for those suggestions. Boy, we're spoilt for choice this afternoon. Stacey Howard, the other book that you're bringing to us is Cloud Street by Tim Winton. I think it was released in the 90s, wasn't it? And Stacey, I don't remember reading it, but I looked it up and it does sound familiar. So remind us about this one.
Well, so I read this, many, many years ago, but it's at the top of my to-be reread list. But it's one that I've always just held so close to my heart and always top of my, like, when people say best books you've ever read, this one always comes to mind. And so it's sort of about two families down on their luck that move into this big house set in Western Australia. And it's just their lives over about 20 years. The things that happen to them, and it's nothing. There's no like hostage situations like the last book I was talking about. It's more of a simpler story about their lives and things that happen to them. And what I remember about it is the writing style, and it's not the most straightforward book. You can't just sort of pick it up and read a page or two. You really need to devote some time to it. And I remember it just really sticking out to me as one that just so different to anything else I'd ever read, I suppose, in the style.
Yeah.
It's got humour, it's got heart, and it is just one that will stick with you.
Yeah. Stacey, have you ever read a book that you didn't finish?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
You do give up. There are some that you think, nah, not into it.
I have so many books. I'm surrounded by books. It's too easy. If a book I'm reading, if I'm not into it, it's too easy to put it down and pick up the next. So, yeah, it's
do you have more than one book on the go at any time?
No, I don't.
One at a time.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't do that either. There are people who can do that, but no, I'm definitely not one of them.
I think I used to lie to myself and think, I'll just start another book and leave this one for a while and come back to it. No, it doesn't ever get gone back to. So I admit now I'm a non-finisher sometimes.
Yeah, there's a few that I have put down over there. There was the series about the girl with the dragon tattoo, and I think the first one was awesome, and then I struggled through the second one, and then by the third I started reading it and I was just over it. I couldn't do it anymore.
Life's too short. There's too many good books out there.
Life's too short, that's right. Poor authors, all that hard work. I have a texter saying, I just finished The Bookshop at the End of the World by Ruth Shaw. It's a memoir of her adventures at sea and several husbands. Oh, that sounds enticing. 0467 922 891 is that text line. Another Pam is saying, I absolutely loved Cloud Street by Tim Winton. Maybe I have to get it out again. Pam says it got me reading more of his books. Yes, I revisited Breath not that long ago, perhaps in the past 6 months or so, and that's definitely worth a revisit. Sue says, a true story, Escape from Magnus by Javiet Elam. A tragic, I hope I didn't murder his name, a tragic confronting story of a young man who escaped Myanmar's brutal regime to end up on Manus Island to eventually escape an absolute eye-opener to the treatment of people trying to gain safe passage to be treated like notorious prisoners. One man's journey for freedom and life. Sue, thank you for that recommendation. If you've just joined us, Stacey Howard is my guest, owner Mockingbird Lounge, second-hand bookstore and cafe. She is recommending Horse by Geraldine Brooks, Anxious People by Frederick Backman, and Cloud Street by Tim Winton. I'm reading at the moment, Stacey, Frank Walker's book, Maralinga.
Oh, yes.
And this is one that will really make you angry as you read it about, it's a fiction book. Sorry, it's not it's a non-fiction book. It's factual, and it represents those nuclear tests on the island of obviously Western Australia, but also in South Australian outback, and it really will make you quite cross reading that. But it's one that I can't put down. You know, I'm just how do we not learn more about this in schools? You know, that sort of thing. Right. Another text saying, I just read 10 Steps to Nanette by Hannah Gadsby. I couldn't put it down while I was in ISO with COVID. It's brilliant and entertaining with insights. It's heartbreaking and hilarious, says Catherine in Aldinga. Have you had any experience with that one, Stacey?
No, I've watched Nanette, and I saw her other show, but yeah, I love Hannah Gadsby, so yeah, definitely give that a read if it came across my path.
Yeah, and Tim in Beaumont is also singing the praises for Cloud Street, saying it's an absolutely awesome read. Having grown up in Perth, it really resonated. Great writing, a joy to read. I think that's one of the things about Tim Winton, isn't it, Stacey, is that it is just so easy to be able to read his books. You keep going, and before you know it, you're at the end. I reckon Carrie Fisher wrote like that too. She was a brilliant author. And Tim in Beaumont says The Riders is another great, easy read from Tim Winton. You familiar with it, Stacey?
Yeah, so I've read a lot of Tim Winton, but I do still, Cloud Street's by far my favourite, and I found the writing of Cloud Street a bit more difficult than his other ones. I found, Breath and Dirt Music, they're all a bit more sort of straightforward writing stories, but this has, I can't even explain it, but it's just different, and I love it, but it's not as easy as, I'm just trying to, manage people's expectations about this. You should definitely read it, 100% recommend, but don't go in thinking it's going to be a, easy read from start to finish. It's definitely got, I found it not challenging, but you really need to focus and concentrate. Yeah.
Intriguing. Well, Stacey Howard, how lovely to be able to speak with you this afternoon. Thank you. Stacey's the owner of Mockingbird Lounge, a second-hand bookstore and cafe. You are on ABC Radio, Adelaide, South Australia and Broken Hill, and I have a chance for you to win something from me coming your way. So make sure you know my number, 1300 222